Welcome to magical episode 166, not to be confused with 666. This is the Chosen Life podcast. Back for another week. Mr. Spirituality himself, Mr. Kasra. You can call me Kaz
Yes.
Kushafar of the hit book Realizations, poetry, uplifting, dark, and everything in between.
That's right.
Welcome back to
Thank-
another week.
Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to host it. I'm Jonathan Hacohen, author of the Bible 3.0, the 6 Commandments of the Chosen Life. We were talking, by the way, last week about book covers and how we came up with our book covers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we talk today about inspiring people to be creative, that was not my concept for a book cover, by the way. In much way you didn't have, yours was originally to have a hand,
Mhm.
right? And it had being a sky. Mine, being a Jubu, was to have a Buddha with a Star of David, and that was going to be the Bible 3.0. And the publisher and the book cover designer said, yeah, I think we should focus on the 6 and maybe not so much on the Jubu and the Bible stuff, because it's not actually a religious book. So let's do the 6, let's make it uplifting. I'm like, cool, let's go with it. So looks nothing like my original concept, and I'm totally okay with that. Because at the end of the day, the final result is there. It's funny, like, I consider myself a perfectionist, Kaz,
Mhm.
but I tell people at work all the time, I don't really care how you get there, as long as you get there. Don't really care about the commas. Don't care if you put a T or a U. As long as it fits, as long as it works, as long as the essence gets there, I'm not too fixated. But man, going through a book and an editing process, oh, you learn to care real freaking quick, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I went through this book 6 or 7 times because I edited it myself. Um, and it was painstakingly difficult. I think that was one of the hardest parts because it took almost double the time, or maybe 1.5 times longer to edit, design, and do all of that than to write it. So I remember like going through it, and then I'd be like, okay, this is the 4th time. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I just want to put this out. I don't care about mistakes. And then I'd be like, all right, let me just open it up to a random page. And then boom, there's a mistake.
Well, we were talking about creative processes. So you were
Yes.
saying when you wrote the book, you were in the zone, writing daily,
Mhm.
nonstop. It's so funny how everybody's process works because, man, I was so different than you.
What was your process?
My process, and it was funny talking to the publisher, I said from the beginning, I'm not writing every day. It's not going to happen because I need so much focus that I literally need a week to recover after a day of writing.
Mm.
So the deal we made was I'm going to write on Sundays. I'm going to go up to the cottage. I'm going to write all morning, maybe in the afternoon. That's it. Stop. Not going to look at it again, and then see it back next week. And that's how I wrote the book. So
How long did it take in total?
let's take out the editing process, because the editing process is a
Yeah.
whole other ball of yarn.
Yeah, just the writing.
Imagine, so I have 21 chapters or so. Every single Sunday, I wrote 1 or 2 chapters. Boom. So literally, I wrote the book maybe in 14 days. The first draft,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically. But the way we did a little differently. Like, okay, so a typical writer will go and write out the book, have a manuscript, go to an editor, go pitch the book. I did it way differently. So I would write a chapter, send it off to the editor. Editor would review it, come back with some notes. I go back to the drawing board. Do this about 2 or 3 times till we're comfortable that the chapter's in a good place, and then I go off to the second chapter. So every chapter is, let's say, a 3-week interval. What I didn't realize was we get to the point that the book is done. I'm like, amazing. This is relief. Wasn't so bad. Nope. There's another editor coming out. Editor number 2 is going to start the exact same process. They're going to read a chapter at a time. They're going to give their notes. Oh, and I'm like, no, we both agreed on this. Why do I need another editor? Because it's got to be perfect. And so a couple of things. Number 1, realizing I see the world in a very set way. I just do. I see a concept. I see how it gets into fruition. I see all the little steps, but I see it very much in a tunnel vision type of thing. If I had written this book in tunnel vision, I honestly think my book would, with my writing skills and where my voice was, don't know if it anywhere near the finished product, simply because it was so good to have these editors as like people standing on the side of the road, and they're like, no, you need to go left, don't go right.
Mm-hmm.
stop. Maybe you have to rethink your map. It wasn't that they wrote it for me, but they were able to make me see myself in different lights. And even like having the creative arguments were saying, this is why I have this sentence in this way. This is the direction it needs to go into the rest of the paragraphs. It stays, and here why, because they didn't see the vision. When I wrote my last chapter, the editor freaked out at me. They're like, what the hell is this thing? You can't end the book like this. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, this chapter makes no sense with the rest of the book. It's like somebody else wrote it. I'm like, exactly. The book is done. I've already talked about everything. Why do I have to summarize in the last chapter? It's all there. Let's just finish nicely and let's just have an encore. And then let's start off to a segue, perhaps into another road.
Mhm.
So I didn't think of a book as a book. I thought of it as a play where you have, the
That's
beginning,
interesting.
an intermission, the end, and an encore. Every book needs an encore. So that's
Mhm.
kind of like where my vision of it was. And that's where I went creatively, but everybody is so, so different in it. And that's where I was fascinated how you were able to write every single day because, man, I couldn't. Like, literally, I needed 6 days to recover each time.
The thing is, it's interesting because the process in the next one has changed. It's changed a lot. But the act of writing every day seems to be the only way to draw out the things that are so subconscious within me that like it doesn't come out unless I force it. Um the idea of writing every day became a discipline as opposed to a process that I realized later is an actual process. But the discipline was, let's write every day. Let's prove to myself that this is something I'm passionate about and I want to do. Because if I absolutely hate it, I'll stop, you know? But very early on is when I realized I'm like in love with this. This is exhilarating. You could literally lock me in a room, not speaking to anyone. I need a pen and paper. I
Yeah.
can't do that 10-day retreat. Maybe at some point I can. Um, but give me a pen and paper and I will turn every emotion into words. And I'm realizing that with this book that I'm currently working on, it's become this, it's very spiritual and transformative. And it's almost become like a prophecy where the act of writing every day, it forces the thoughts to not be stagnant. It's very much, you know how you said therapy is like the brain's or the mind's exercise.
Mm. So I think for me, therapy
Hmm.
is the gym for the mind and the soul.
Yes.
We go to the gym because we have to take care of our physical bodies. But a lot of us are neglecting our minds and our souls. And this is where people saying, "Oh, therapy is not for me."
Hmm.
Oh, your mind and soul don't need the gym. You're good. Like you're born perfect. I
Hmm.
don't think so. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we go therapy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I've been like recently trying to loosen my hamstring. I'm realizing that it's affecting my hip, my back, and so on. But I'm realizing that if I skip it for 2 days, they tighten up again. And it's the same thing with writing that I've realized. If I write every day, it becomes fluid. It's almost like I'm driving to work and then the downloads of these ideas and these phrases, like they come to me in phrases, they come easier. Whereas if I don't write for a week, if I don't write for 2 weeks, it's all good. It's not that like I'm forcing myself. I'll take breaks for sure. But I realize if I don't, then they come less often. So it's like when the gears are in motion, then the ideas, especially if I'm tunnel vision, because I'm kind of the same thing. I have this vision in my head for what this was and what the next one will be. And I'm like locked in. Nobody other than myself can throw me off that vision. Uh and that process, the writing every day really changes it a lot.
So now I'm hearing you.
Hmm.
And again, I'm looking within myself and saying, "Oh crap, this all makes sense now." Why? So okay. So first of all, this is just to put a shout out to the lovely world of live internet. So this is the first time we've been doing this podcast for 3 years. We've never actually gone live. So talked to the producer. He gave the thumbs up. So we're actually live streaming this thing, which will also be aired in a later episode of the Chosen Life podcast. So shout out to everybody watching live. Hope we're inspiring you and hearing great stuff. And it's pretty cool when you know there's an audience. But on the same token, I feel like we're just sitting at a bar, we're talking, me and
Yeah.
you, we're catching up. And if people want to pull up a seat and listen to us, that was the whole premise of the podcast. So they're doing that as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I was going to talk about this next week. I'm going to bring it up now. So I was mentioning to Kasra that in the span now of in under 2 months, so in about 6 weeks or so, I'm going to be going off to Vipassana. I thought about this 14 years ago.
Wow.
I'll tell you in a second where that came from. And I heard about it and I've been thinking about it, making all the excuses in the world why I can't do this. And Vipassana, and its essence for most people, 10 days, you drive up north to this lovely resort, you hand over your phone, you have no internet, no telephone, no emails, no books, no paper and pen. You get nothing. All you get is maybe a clock that you're allowed to bring and your clothes and a towel, and that's it.
Do you change, like, can you bring outfits?
You're allowed to bring outfits. They recommend to bring comfortable outfits, not revealing outfits. That's one of the rules. So, rule number one was do not kill anybody, which again should have been assumed, but they actually put in there that you're not allowed to kill anybody. So, I will not kill anybody, obviously.
I mean, where is that allowed for that to be like?
Don't know where it ever was
You know?
allowed, but it's definitely not encouraged. And it is rule number one: do not kill anybody. No sexual gratification, including personal. So no of that any kind, any clarity. And number three, no revealing outfit. I'm off the order now, but no revealing outfits. Everything come comfortable, but you're separated from the sexes. So men are on one side, women are on the other side. You never see, never interact with them. You're all within yourself. So where did this all get born was I hear you about writing every day. So I went and did this book, my book, and did it as wrote it every Sunday, took 6-day mental break. I was an everyday writer, my friend. You know when? 14 freaking years ago. So
Interesting.
I was a blogger in a past life. I love baseball. I was very passionate about baseball. I have a baseball tattoo. I love baseball so much. So there's
Nice.
baseball guy. So I'm writing every single day about baseball. I was back 14, 15, 16 years ago. This was when blogging was in its infancy still, and podcasting was never not a thing whatsoever. And 3 years and got to the point, have a good audience, really popular on social media. We had 10,000 people on Twitter back then. Like that was massive.
That's a lot.
15 years ago, that was
Yeah.
massive. So you're going to love this. I'm driving to work Monday morning and I realized I'm done. That blog, I loved it more than anything in this world. I was so passionate about this blog every single day. I had other writers. I was editing their work, writing my work, and I'm in the world of writing, and I love this. I call up my head writer Monday morning. I tell him, I'm giving you the blog. It's yours. I'm not writing anymore. It's how you created this. That's your baby. Told him, I'll never forget the words. It just hit me. I said, I am done writing about life. I'm ready to live life. I'm going to yoga. I'll see you later. So he ends up buying the site for me, which 14 years later, I'm buying back from him just to keep the thing alive so it never
No
dies.
way.
Yes, but that's a whole different story. So imagine 15 years ago, I stopped writing every day, stopped writing altogether, and took a 10-year hiatus, didn't freaking write anything, and didn't read anything. The things that I'm most passionate about. I love reading, I love writing, and I'm not doing it all. Why? I just want to do yoga. I just want to figure out my shit. That's it. And every day going to yoga every single day. And I hear about this Vipassana and about the whole thing about detaching, and nobody's going to be around you for the most part. You're waking up at 4 in the morning, you go to bed 8:30, eat twice a day, and you're literally sitting with your thoughts. You meditate like 8-9 times a day, and that's it. And it sounded so exciting to me in a world filled with stress where everybody needs me for something and wants something from me. And they're like, hey, Jonathan, how's it going? How's your mom? How's your dog? What do you want? They're only calling me because they want something. That's the reality of it in most cases. And I'm constantly doing something for somebody and trying to help somebody. And I'm constantly putting myself away because I need to be there for other people. And that's all that's supposed to be important. And imagine a life where you don't have to be there for others whatsoever. You don't have to think about anything else except just be with you. And that is the most enticing thing in the world. And that's where I'm off to Vipassana. But really, this is 10 consecutive days of something I did for 10 years. 10 days, 10 years, you see?
Interesting.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can see it. Where the same way, I see your passion after writing realizations and saying, man, I can't wait for that second book. And I can see her look at you. I may never write another book again. And I love it. And I want
Interesting.
to. And I
Hmm.
have so many ideas for the books, but I don't think I'm going to do it because you know, that point in time when you write a book, you accomplish something. You're like, man, I put this out into the world. I don't really care how many copies it sells. Don't care what people really think about it. I've done it. I'm a piece of this. It's there forever. And then you just let go. That detachment, I find it so exhilarating.
You know, it's interesting you say that because recently I created this just for no reason at all. This digital magazine. I got a bunch of people that were willing to uh submit their work and their art. And what I found to be exhilarating, like you had said, was the fact that for no other reason other than just the act of creating it, with that intention in mind, it alleviates all the pressures that you would normally have. You know, it's not this thing that it's like, oh, like you said, I need to sell X number of copies. I needed to make this impact in the world. It doesn't matter. It's going to make the impact it's going to make regardless. And I think that starting off with that intention in mind is what creates good art because otherwise you're creating with an intention. I'm almost done, but I've been reading Rick Rubin's book. It's called The Creative Act, A Creative Act, The Way of Being, something like that.
Crazy talented music producer.
Very, very.
Levels. Yeah.
And he's saying the most basic things in the most profound ways. And that was one of them, to essentially create without the need for it to be something. And so I look at myself and I'm like, I like to play music. I like to make music. I'll write music. Um, I like to sometimes paint and just like different art forms I like to tap into. But then there's always this little thought in your head, well, what can I do with it? Can I turn it into this? Can I connect it into this? And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Just create something and it could never be anything again. But that little act of creation could inspire somebody else to pick up something and do something they weren't willing to do or they didn't have the confidence to do. And I think this is a testament to that, you know, because for you, maybe you don't ever want to write another book, but it doesn't matter because you wrote this one and you put that out and it impacted the people that it did and it'll continue to do it. So when I think of my next book, obviously there's a vision to it. There's, you know, how will it advance the writer that I see myself to be? All of that is amazing and all to envision it, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if what I think about it. It just has to be written. It has to be put out. And that's it. And you kind of like push your chair back and you just let it be. And I find that feeling to be very powerful.
Man, this is like 2 weeks of therapy, man. I'm having so many deep life realizations thanks to you. I really appreciate that. And I hope by me
My
having
rate is not.
I hope by me having my realizations, other people are listening in and live people. Hey, how's it
I
going?
hope so. I hope so.
Because I come to realize, you know, I talked about the idea last week that each of us must have a creative outlet. It's really important in life. How many people wake up in the morning, get dressed, go to work, do something they don't love, clock out, come home, plop on the couch, watch TV, eat a TV dinner, go to sleep, repeat. That's their life, right? Then Saturday, Sunday, get drunk at the bar, sleep until 2 p.m. or so. But you're doing this over and over. And I know I had that realization at like my creative as far as working professionally that I'm now 10 years a lawyer and I'm working so hard to build up experience and all this. But man, I'm in the exact same point in my life that I was at 10 years ago. I have done nothing in the last 10 years except gone to work, done everything for everybody else, rinse and repeat. And I haven't moved. I'm in quicksand and like I started hyperventilating. It's the
Mm,
worst freaking feeling. So I thought, you know, when I'm done the podcast came before the book, funny enough, but this to
yeah.
me is art form. This is creativity. So instead of writing it, I get to speak it. Same way you get to play music.
Hmm.
And it's out there. You know, you can look at it, you can feel it. The last 2 years, what I've been doing, you're ready? You're going to laugh at me. It's going to sound so stupid.
Okay, let's hear it.
I can't believe I'm admitting this. All right. So last 2 years, I have been accumulating recipes. So my son tells me each week what he feels like. picks a recipe, an idea of a dish out of the sky. He'll do the research, or I'll do the research. We'll find a really good recipe. I'll try it out. I'll get the ingredients, put it together. I like it. I save the recipe, and I have this accumulation of recipes. Well, coming now 2 or 3 years now, maybe even 3 years. The time flies like so because we're 2025. Wow, I think it's actually been 3 years.
Are you creating a cooking book?
I know everybody asked me that, but like,
That's where I thought this was going.
no, I have 150 recipes,
Wow.
and then I took the recipes and categorized. So I made them alphabetical. Then I categorized them by breakfast, Italian, Mexican, Chinese, desserts, side dishes, and I have all these recipes. And then I go into the recipe I got originally, and I start tweaking, and I find what worked for me. And the funny thing about the art form of making a recipe, a dish. So you go and make your dish, you take a picture of it, you look at it for a second, it gets eaten, and then it doesn't exist anymore. You put in so much time between thinking of the recipe, evolving the recipe,
Oh,
buying the ingredients, cooking it, presenting it. You put in 6, 7 hours. It's like you making a painting and me saying great and tearing it off the
tearing it.
canvas, eating it, and it's gone. That's how it feels. So it's the most exhilarating to be able to create it, and then it's nothing again.
That literally teaches you what we've just been saying. The I guess the art of letting go, right? Just let it go.
And people have so many creative outlets possible. There are people that are really good at building things, so they'll go build shelves. They'll go build racks. They are so handy, they can go and fix their roof. They can go and lay down flooring, ceramic, hardwood, whatever. People that can create and make vases and mugs. You start thinking about the idea of where creativity comes from. There's so many different angles. And what I encourage people all the time, especially at work and friends and family,
Mm,
if you're not feeling fulfilled, unless you're saying, oh, I got a dead end job and I got a dead end relationship and, my kids don't love me and whatever being, I always stop them for a second and say, think about the past week. What have you done for you? What have you not just gone and rewarded yourself? You didn't just go shopping. You didn't go and eat at an expensive restaurant, buy yourself a latte at Starbucks. But what did you go and do activity wise for you that let you be creative? Did you go and play golf? Did you go and create a vase? Did you go write a book? Whatever being, you can go cook. There's so many different avenues of things we can do to release those energies. But it's number one, releasing of the energy. But number two, it's a feeling of self worth. Wow, I did something. I did it. And I'm good at it. I believe in me. Like I marvel at people that can paint. I don't have any artistic ability in myself to paint at all. And I'm like so jealous of that. People that can go play music. I love listening to music, but man, I can't play a lick.
mm.
But I can appreciate it because I have other gifts and I go and look for that. I definitely encourage people at the end of the day, if you want to feel that self worth, don't go looking for it from a Big Mac or go look for it from a relationship. It's find within yourself things to do and keep yourself busy because you'll be better for others and better for yourself.
I agree. And you said that there's a release, there's that self worth. And I want to add even a third thing, which is what
Yes.
I'm realizing now, which is literal transformation. I find that because this next book is going to be stories, fiction, storytelling, that this bottled up emotion that is so subconscious that we're not even aware a lot of the times, it comes out through these stories. And by the act of bringing it out and turning it into something, you're transforming not only that expression, but yourself. So it's almost like when people say, again, this is a very biased, I think, opinion of mine, like they write digitally or they read digitally or paint on an iPad. I find that the transformation comes through the physical act. So when you're holding a book, based on the size, based on the density, based on the feel of paper, the pain that comes in your hand from holding it, that is the sacrifice to the knowledge you're receiving. Now, a more, I think, better example that people can maybe visualize is painting. You get literal paint on your hands, literal paint on your clothes. That's why sometimes people wear outfits to paint. That is like the sacrifice for what you're putting into the painting, but what the painting is then giving you. And that's why I think expression in any form, you could literally go walk outside, like it could literally be anything, but expression changes something within us. It turns that stagnant energy into something else. And just that alone, even if it like there was no success or there was no recognition or anything, that self-expression within me would still exist because it has to be let out. It has to be transformed. And you know what's interesting? The I was talking to a friend about this. The next book, I have no idea how it's going to end. But one thing that I'm realizing is that it's not just the stories that will reach this conclusion. It's also this version of myself. As I continue to write this, I will continue to transform and grow. And so that person that's going to finish the book, I'm not him yet. So it's almost like the act of writing every day, which goes back to what we were saying,
Yes.
allows me to become that person, allows me to essentially grow.
I want to dig so much deeper into self-expression because I have so many thoughts going through my mind. So on that note, we're gonna stop here because we're gonna have Kaz back for another week. The author of Realizations, beautiful book, beautiful man. So much love he gives to the world, and we're gonna talk about self-realization next week and how to break free, how to
Mhm.
let go and finally break free. And we're gonna help people with that next week. So you're gonna have to stay tuned for that. This has been the Chose Life Podcast. Y'all back next week.